Hey, what is going on, guys? Today we're taking a look here at the very special high-grade Gundam G40 Industrial Design version, the collaboration between Bandai and Ken Okuyama Design. Now, in the unboxing, we went through all of the special art book that is included with this, so just keep in mind that that is also sort of accessory with this kit, that you do also get that really cool art book that goes over the design process and all of that. There was a lot of cool information and pictures and stuff in there. But actually building the kits, it was a really interesting build, and obviously the finished product is a very interesting result as well. It's a very unique take on the Gundam. But we'll go through everything here. If you missed the live stream of this, I did live stream the build of that, so you can go back and check that out. If you missed it live, you can always just watch it later. You can see some of my thoughts and feedback throughout the building process of stamping this all together. So as always, guys, big thank you to USA Gundam Store for making this review possible. Do check the link to their site there down below, where you can save 10% off everything on the site using the coupon code ZakuAurelius10, which is also down there in the video description, so check that out. Let's check out the few accessories that you do get with this kit. And just a heads up to anyone who didn't see the live stream build of this, I am going to be painting this kit up straight away as soon as I'm done with the Barbatos Master Grade kit. But the color scheme that I'm going to go with for this, I'm going to leave that up to you guys. So we're going to have a public poll there on the USA Gundam Store site. So down there in the video description, I'll have a link to the poll as well, where you guys can go and vote. At the end of the review here, I'll talk about the different color choices that I'll have available for you guys to vote on. Right, so the first thing I think we could count among the accessories is the sticker sheet here. We got one sticker for the front of the crotch there, one for the top of the head, and then we have two options for the eyes. So as you can see, I've gone with the yellow eyes, but you could choose to have pink eyes, which would match the camera on the top of the head as well if you prefer. And just real quick on the subject of the eyes, the part is actually molded a little bit different than usual. Usually the eye detail is raised, but in this case that eye detail is actually a sunken in, like a recessed detail. So painting it in should be a little bit different from the normal experience of painting eyes if you paint your eyes in your HG kits. Then moving down here to the hands, for our hand options, as you can see we have just these open hands for the left and the right side, which are pretty nicely detailed. Those look pretty good. And then we do also just have a set of regular holding hands here, which we're going to use for holding the beam saber handles. And then one trigger finger hand here for the right hand for holding the beam rifle. And speaking of the beam rifle, here that is. It's pretty nice. You have the little yellow piece in there for the camera. I do like the new redesign of this. It's pretty sleek, pretty cool looking. Now, like usual, the camera on the top can be rotated side to side, and the handle in the front can also be rotated side to side like usual. But what is unique and unusual for this kit is that this handle can also be rotated forward like that, so that'll make it pretty nice and easy to hold with both hands. I do also kind of like it when it's just down in a position like this, for that to be actually angled a little bit forward rather than just straight down. Now this does have a seam line down the top of the whole body of the gun there, unfortunately. But then of course we do have our two clear pink beam saber effect parts. These are just the same normal HG ones. There's nothing really too special or unique about these. And then we've got the shield, which is a pretty interesting new take here on the shield. I like what they've done with the cross here, turned it into just kind of this very low detail there, just kind of cut out detail. And this sight bit here though is a little bit odd looking. It does kind of make sense, is that it should be very narrow, like realistically, but it just looks a bit goofy. Here on the back you can see we do have some nice detail there. Try to get it so that you guys can see that pretty well. It's not washed out in white, but the shield can just be attached here onto the side of the arm with this peg like that. Or what you can do with that piece is rotate that around 180 degrees, so it's just a little bit higher up like that, and then you can actually plug this here into the center of the backpack as well. You could have it on a little bit at an angle like that, so you're able to plug that onto his back, which is nice. But there's a little bit more going on here on the back of the shield. Actually, down here you have this handle which will fold out there. You can just hold onto that handle there if you want while it's plugged onto the arm, but you don't really particularly necessarily need that. Now this part up here though is a little bit more interesting. If we remove this centerpiece there in the center, for plugging that onto the arm or the backpack, you have this part here which also folds out. Now this is not really mentioned in the manual what you're really supposed to do with that, so I guess this is just supposed to be just another handle that you can just hold on to it, just grip it in a different way like that, like straight out. I guess that's kind of what you're really meant to do with this. And then if you notice, there's also another hard point here at the bottom, which I guess you could plug this into when you're holding it like that, because then this part would be in the way of this other handle, so I guess you can just plug that down into there or something. That would be my best guess, but as far as I can tell, there's nothing in the manual that says really too clearly about that, so you're just kind of I guess that's how that's supposed to be. Alright, but of course one of the main draws of this kit is just going to be the articulation, as it's very interestingly engineered, and as we've seen from all Bandai's promotional images, the engineering that has gone into the articulation for this is really what they're trying to sell. So let's start off with the head here. As you can see, we've got a pretty interesting neck joint at like the base of the neck there. This whole bit moves up and down, but then you also have a point of articulation up in there and the head as well. So ultimately you can get that up all the way to there, so it's looking like straight up. That'll be good for like shooting straight up poses or flying through the sky poses, anything like that you can do. And then as you can see, we can also rotate that side to side as well, so you can get that kind of like off to the side, sort of like that and like that. And with this neck being relatively long, in my opinion a little bit too long, you can do these kind of poses like that really well, and it looks good like from the right angle, but from the wrong angle it's gonna look really goofy just for how long that neck is. And again, my biggest gripe is just that the neck is a little bit long, so just in like a standard pose like this, not in an action pose, the head is just looking like a bobblehead up there. We just need that to be a little bit further down or something, just something so that it doesn't look like, you can angle it all the way down like to there, and it kind of hides the bobblehead look of that a little bit. But again, just in an action pose I think it's going to be the best way. As for the V-fin, it did have safety flags on the edge of there. I just cut those off and sanded the V-fin down until it was nice and sharp like that. And I will say, I do like that the red under the eyes is a separate piece connected with the red part there under the chin, and then the black that you're seeing on the sides, the vents there, and then the Vulcans, that's actual black piece up inside the head as well. So that's like actually color separated. That'll be nice for painting that bit. Let's go around here onto the backpack then. Next, our beam saber handles can actually be rotated up. This section just rotates up like that to the sort of normal position we were used to seeing our beam saber handles up like that. Or you can just keep them down here, as they're, I guess, sort of meant to be for this particular version. Then our thruster bells here on the backpack actually have 2 points of articulation, so a lower point and an upper point, so that kind of those can be brought all the way up to there. So you can see our secondary joint is here, that moves that bit up and down, and then the main bit just moves up and down there. Now as for the torso, what you have inside the structure here basically allows the whole torso to sort of accordion out, and then you can kind of move it pretty much any way that you like. So as we move that like that, this center red bit actually is just kind of loose, just floating in there. So it's a little bit annoying because sometimes when you're doing a pose, or it just pops out very easily like that. But I guess while we're here, let's take a look at that structure inside. There you go, you can just kind of get a look at how that looks there. But yes, to the front, it can come all the way up like that. And again, this part is just kind of like resting in there. And then all the way to the back out like that, which again is going to look pretty weird from the wrong angle, but from the right angle, it does make for a pretty good flying pose. That of course can also go side to side, bend that all the way to the side and all the way to the side like that. And it's here on the torso where we're running into our first notable seam lines on the kit here between the front and back half of the blue parts, the red parts, and the red parts you have seam, seam, seam. Up on the top as well, sort of a little bit, tiny bit of a seam there between the front and back half of the blue parts, but it's not really all that noticeable. There is also this seam down the middle of the back of the head as well, but it's kind of like in between this detail here, so it seems like it's sort of maybe meant to be there, but just also not. So I'm not sure. That one's a little bit unfortunate because it's right through that detail, and just seems like they could have easily made that just a little bit like off to the side to be a part of this detail, so that's a bit strange. But as for the arms, starting off with the shoulders here, that can move up and down like so. Forward and back though, you're pretty much just left to whatever you can get out of this ball joint here, so that's a little bit disappointing, that bit there. When you're bringing the arm up, the shoulder goes up to there, and then you can bring the arm up all the way up, straight up like that, so that's good. And then you also have a little bit of articulation here with this, the top part of the shoulder armor can also be rotated up on its own like that. So actually, if that is pointed up and you rotate the arm sideways like that, you can actually fit the arm up through the shoulder armor there to get even farther all the way up like that. And then here for the arm, this whole bicep armor will just rotate there on its own, which is actually a little bit annoying. I kind of wish that it didn't do that. It just kind of gets annoying how you're rotating the arm around, posing the arm, and then you notice like the bicep armor is kind of weird and wonky like that. But the arm of course just does rotate there at the top of the bicep. And then we have a joint here in the elbow, which is going to give us a pretty full bend there, much more than 90 degrees. And so because this bicep armor is just kind of there on its own, you can rotate the whole arm above the bicep, or you can keep the bicep where it is and rotate the whole arm a little bit below the bicep there. And here is the split between the like two parts of the forearm there with that kind of horizontal split. And I thought this was going to allow for more articulation, but it's really only this little bit here, so you can rotate that just a little bit side to side within like the two parts of the forearm there. And you also have a seam line here, here, and here on both these parts, and then around on the back of the forearm, a seam line down the center of there. As for the wrist, it's just on a ball joint there, but then we do have a hinge, so you can move that back and forth like that as well. For the skirt armor, there's just no articulation here because the skirt is not actually meant to be articulated at all. And it's broken up. There's like a front half, a back half, and then there's the side skirts, but the side skirts actually aren't supposed to even be there. It's all supposed to be all one piece. If you look at the promotional images, there's no seam line here. So if you really wanted to get technical about it, you should actually remove these seam lines here on the side of the skirt section as well. I'm definitely not going to really bother with that with mine, as I think it's fine like that. I would actually prefer them to be a little bit more separated, to be honest. I don't really particularly like that the whole skirt section is just meant to be like all one piece that is not supposed to move at all, and even the front skirts and back skirts don't move or anything, so I don't really particularly like that aspect of the design. But let's take a look at the hip joint here, and I think it's better if I just remove one of the legs so you can see this. So we have where the leg will plug into there, which will move up and down on a track by itself, and then this whole structure will move up and down like that and like that. So the hip joint is pretty awesome. And that is also going to explain why Bandai couldn't make just the regular action-based connector, just the regular peg hole here at the bottom, just because that would just go right up into this articulation structure there. So that's why, unfortunately, they couldn't make that drill hole there for that. But so ultimately, you can bring that leg down and then bring that whole hip section down, and the leg can come out all the way to there. Something like that, which is looking a bit odd. But then we have one more bend here at the top of the thigh like that, which is looking very strange. So this top of the thigh part there, that is meant so that because the skirt armor doesn't move, they just made it so the leg bends around the skirt armor instead, and it's just very goofy. It just doesn't really seem necessary at all, but that's just kind of how they wanted to design it. So again, it's the kind of thing that looks really weird from the wrong angle, but I mean, if you're looking at it like this, and that's not going to look quite as strange. It just looks like he's like jumping or sort of whatever, like normal, but it is going to look pretty weird from the wrong angle. Let's put that back up together there. And so then of course the leg can also be rotated there at the top, but it also a little bit kind of clashes here, just the width of the thigh part here. When you're trying to rotate that, as you can see, it's kind of crashing into the center part there, so you kind of have to bring it out a little bit to be able to rotate that actually all the way around. And you can bring that out to the side, again only really to there, but unless we lower that hip joint, then you can bring the leg all the way out to the side to there like that. And also, just on a personal note, I just don't really like how this hip joint is, how it's just like this circle. You have like this blocky structure for the legs, blocky, 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 and then just cuts off there, and you have just this ball of a joint there at the top, and it just really, in my opinion, interrupts this kind of design of this. You just have this bulky structure, and it just seems like if this was just a kind of square shaped joint there for that instead of this weird ball shape, it looks like something from Iron Blooded Orphans, like a joint from Iron Blooded Orphans. Not really particularly fitting for the Gundam in this case, in my opinion. Anyway, moving down to the knee, we've got a nice full knee joint here, as you might expect, so that all looks pretty good. And then like with the forearm, our lower leg is split in half like that, where you have a little bit of movement here side to side like that. This one again just doesn't really seem to really be all that worth it. What can you really particularly do with that, but it's just something they wanted to add in there. Around at the back of the leg, you have this little flap which will move up and down on the front ankle armor. This is actually connected to the top of the foot there. That will move a little bit, and then the front flap of that will also move up and down a little bit like so. The ankle itself can go way off to the side like that. That's no problem. You can bring the whole foot forward and point the whole thing back, and then the whole foot is separated into 3 parts, so you have an interesting separation there of that. So you got some nice detail there up underneath, and then yeah, you kind of need to like push the front toe in together to get that solid. Then you can kind of slide that out and pull that apart to get more of a toe bend, so to get that like full curl of the foot like that, which is pretty strange. I think that just about covers it for all of the articulation for this. So it's got a lot of very interesting articulation gimmicks to it. Some of them work, some of them don't really seem all that necessary in my opinion, like it's just a little bit overly engineered. But of course, it's going to make for some really interesting posing, really realistic, lifelike posing, I think. Also, just seam lines here on the leg, down the side of the thigh, you have a seam line there, but that one also just kind of the angle of that just looks like it's kind of meant to be there, so wouldn't really worry too much about that. And then the lower leg, obviously, as you can see, we have a seam line on this section there as well. And for a comparison, here it is next to the HGUC RX-782 Revive kit, and I really love the Revive kit. I like that kit a lot. I think it's a fantastic kit. It's pretty basic, but it also comes with at a very cheap price. It's I think around 1,000, 1,200 yen for that, so around 1/3 the price of the G40 here. Obviously not as complicated of a design structure for that in terms of articulation and everything, but the articulation of the Revive Gundam is also really super nice in my opinion, actually. So I mean, for me, unless you're really a big fan of the G40, I would still very highly recommend the Revive kit between the two of them. But like I said, the name of the game for the G40 is going to be in the posing, so let's try out some posing with that. But the unfortunate thing that we saw in the unboxing video was that for posing this kit, you're going to have to use this fork style action base adapter for this. So that is, I think, going to be a problem because that's going to be getting in the way. So it was hard to rotate the legs before, and now that's going to be even blocking the rotation of the legs even more. So you're going to have to really bring the leg out in order to get any rotation out of that. If you want to have this up straight like that, but rotate it a little bit, it's just not going to happen. Alright, so I'm going to do my best to throw this in a few different poses for you guys, just so you can get an idea, but obviously with the amount of articulation in there, and especially all the odd and interesting new points of articulation that they've added for this kit, the different posing that you could do for this is pretty wide open. So I'm just going to give you a few different examples, and you guys can use your imagination as to all the different other sorts of type of poses that you could do with this, of course. And overall, my thoughts on the kit are pretty mixed. The list price for this is around 3,000 yen, so it's around $30 for a high-grade kit like this. Other high-grade kits that are around that same price tag would be something similar to like the Moon Gundam, which between the two, I would definitely recommend the Moon Gundam over this. It has more detail, it's also really super nicely articulated, it's much larger, it has, I think, more accessories and stuff in it, so I mean, it's not really a competition at that point, but overall I think the price point for this kit is just a little bit high, and so that pretty much just makes it a little bit more of like a premium item. You have to kind of think of this as, if you're thinking of this as just like your regular standard HG kit, then 3,000 yen for this is definitely overpriced. But if you're considering it as a limited premium special, almost sort of like collector's item, just because of the fact that it's a limited release, then I guess it's not that much to pay for. I mean, because it is a pretty nice high grade in the fact that it's a complex build, it's a very unique build, it's a very unique design on the Gundam, and again, just because of the Bandai's, so far they're only doing just the single limited run of this, so just for those facts alone, then I'd say it's definitely worth seeking out and picking up if you can get it for, you know, anywhere near the list price for it. As for the kit itself, there are definitely pros and cons to it. So while the articulation and just the complexity and the uniqueness of the build are all really nice bits of this, and just for how unique it is overall, the fact that it's got some of those seam lines on there on areas that I think that could have been avoided, like the stomach section especially, those two red parts I think could have been made in a way without having a seam line on there, just for an example. But that and the stickers, the foil sticker on the top of the head, I think that would have been cool if that was an actual clear pink part on the top of the head there. That would have been nice. And then the sticker on the front of the crotch for the little yellow V there, I know it would have been a pretty tiny piece, but just to have that as a separate yellow piece set inside the red piece there for that, if that would have just been color separated, these little bits would have made this feel like much more of a premium kit. So I don't know, it's definitely a mixed bag of a kit. I think if you really like the design and you're really interested in the build, then I'd say get it and you'll like the kit. If you're not really that into the design, then I would say definitely just pass on it. Don't spend the money on this kit if you're not really that into the design, because the kit overall, if you're not a fan of the design, is not really all that cool looking. I mean, no matter how you slice it, if you're not really into the design, and I'm trying my best to appreciate the design, and definitely when it's posed in action poses, it looks better than when it's not. And I definitely think that once it's painted, it's going to look a lot better as well, but as it is now, I'm still just not really feeling the design. I'm trying my best, but just not really liking it. But that's just me. I'm interested to hear what you guys think about it. I feel like a lot of you guys are also probably split. I know there's a lot of people who like the design, a lot of people who don't like the design at all. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Now, as I said, I am going to be painting this straight away, so I'll let you guys know what the choices that I'm going to go for for the paint scheme for this. So I'm going to basically go with the 3 canon options and 3 just custom options. The 3 canon options being the real type color version, or the G3 color version, or the prototype Gundam color versions of those schemes, or in just complete custom colors, doing a blue custom color scheme, or an orange custom color scheme, or a purple custom color scheme, sort of white, maroon, purplish color for that. Anyway, so, alright, like I said, so the poll for that is going to be on USA Gundam Store. Go there and vote. The link to that is down in the video description. Obviously, there's no purchase necessary or anything for that. You don't have to live within the United States. No matter where you are in the world, you can vote in that poll, so vote. And then as soon as I'm ready to start painting for this, I'll see whichever color scheme is winning at that point, and that will be the color scheme that I'll paint this in. So once again, guys, thank you to USA Gundam Store for their support. Thank you to you all for watching. If you have further questions or comments, do feel free to leave those down below. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.